So what does it mean to say that an English Bible translation is accurate? We're going to talk about that today. So let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to the Puzzle Piece Exegete. My name is Stephen Rodriguez. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because this is the place where we go from the shallow end of God's Word to the deep end of God's Word. And so today we're going to take a look at the question, what makes a English translation accurate? Now, in one of the previous videos I did, I referenced the New American Standard Bible. If you haven't checked out that video, it's all about what translation you should use. So make sure to check that video out if you haven't already. But I referenced the New American Standard Bible and how it's the most literal English translation that we have of the form of the Hebrew and the Greek text. Now, while that might be true, does that make it the most accurate translation? And that's what we're going to be answering today. And we're going to be answering, what does it mean to say that an English translation is accurate? Now, I'm going to go and put this chart on the screen. This is a little bit different from the other chart that I did in my previous video, but this is kind of give it a refresher, right? So our word-for-word translation, also called formal equivalence, they translate it until it becomes comprehensible in English, which is good because it can be closer to the original form of the Hebrew and the Greek, but often it can have awkward English, it can be very wooden, and it can be sometimes less understandable. And the far end of that spectrum is the more thought for thought or the functional equivalence. This translates the Bible until it becomes really natural English, very easy to understand. It communicates the message very clearly, but there's a lot of interpretation that's involved in this, and it strays farther from the actual form of the Hebrew and the Greek. And in the very middle, we have often what's called mediating, which is kind of a marriage of the two, of the formal and the functional equivalence, the word for word and the thought for thought. And it translates it until it's clear in the English, which it's good because it gives a good balance of both formal and functional, but it's, again, there's a level of interpretation that's involved more so than the formal equivalent versions. And so again, I have to reiterate that every translation is an interpretation. You're going to hear that probably more than once in this video. Every translation is an interpretation, so you just heard it again, right? But it's important, and this is why it's important for us to read more than one translation. It's good for us to read more word for word and more thought for thought. And I'm going to bring up another graphic that I'm going to give you an example, right? So we got to see, well, okay, where do we see this played out? And again, how do we understand whether a translation is accurate? So because the more word for word is going to try to be accurate to the actual form, and the more functional or the more thought for thought is going to be try to be more accurate to the meaning or the context of the passage. So let's take a look at some examples here. So the first one we're going to take a look is from Luke 1:26. So the Greek, I'm putting up the Greek here. So if we're trying to say, okay, as literal as we can, and as wooden as we can, this is what it would say. And this is from Luke 1:26. This has to do with Elizabeth, right? And that's the mother of John the Baptist. And so here we go. So, and in the month of the 6th was sent the angel Gabriel from God into a city of Galilee, which name Nazareth. All right. I mean, we're not going to talk like that, right? I mean, that doesn't, in our type of English, while that might be as literal as possible, while it might be as accurate to true to form as possible, does it really make sense to us? It's kind of, yeah, we can make sense of it, but I mean, what's going on? And so we look at the ESV, our more formal equivalent versions, more, again, more accurate to the form. They're trying to be more accurate to the form of the Hebrew and the Greek. And in the ESV, we see, in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city of Galilee named Nazareth. Now, a lot easier than what I just read in like a just my rendering of the Greek. But so we have here in the 6th month. Now, what 6th month are we talking about, right? Are we at the 6th month of the year, or are we talking about something else? And so this is where more functional equivalent versions like the NIV here help us understand the context and the meaning of the passage. They're trying to be more accurate to the context and the meaning of the passage. And so we read in NIV, it says, in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town of Galilee called Nazareth. Now, of Elizabeth's pregnancy is not in the Greek. Now, again, I kind of have the Greek up here, and we don't, there, Elizabeth's name's not here, pregnancy's not here, and so, but what it does, it's not saying that this is wrong, but the NIV is seeking to be accurate to the context, because obviously, I mean, what we're talking about here is the 6 month of her pregnancy, right? Even though the Greek doesn't say that, that's the meaning of the passage. But we're not talking about the 6 month of the year. We're talking about the 6 month of Elizabeth's pregnancy. And so what we have an example here is the NIV being more accurate to the. Not saying that the ESV is less accurate to the, but they're concentrated on trying to get that form more accurate to the form of the Greek. Elizabeth and pregnancy is not there, so they're not going to include it. Now the NIV says, well, we want to help kind of clear this up just in case you might have any questions. It's the 6 months, 6 month of Elizabeth's pregnancy. And so what the NLT and what functional equivalent versions like this will do, and these are just an examples. I mean, there's tons of examples out there, but this is just an example of the functional equivalent versions trying to be accurate to the actual context and the actual meaning or the thought of the passage, and where the more formal equivalent versions are trying to be accurate to the actual form of the Greek and the Hebrew. And this is why I believe we need to have, because both are good, right? I mean, if I'm wanting to study the Bible and we want to not just read the Bible, but study the Bible, and we have a more formal equivalent version and we see, okay, it might be not as clear, like what is it, what do they mean by that? Well, let maybe bring out a more functional equivalent version, and maybe sometimes it brings to light the context a little bit clearer, the meaning of the passage a little bit clearer, because again, they're trying to be accurate to the actual meaning and the actual thought of the passage. And so this is a quick video, kind of off my last video, but what does it mean, to sum everything up, what does it mean to be accurate? Not only is it just to be accurate to the form of the original language, but to be accurate to the meaning of the original language. And we need both. And in order for that, we need to read multiple translations. And so the beautiful thing is I'll show you on my phone, but I'm recording on my phone right now. But you know, on your phone, on the computer, we have the plethora of translations, and refer back to the chart that I pulled up that shows the different translation spectrums that we have, from the more literal to the more thought for thought. And when we use multiple translations as we study God's Word, it just helps us in our walk with Him. So that's all today, guys. Till next time, keep putting those puzzle pieces together. God bless.